The moment she realized the luggage wasn't hers was the moment her life quietly split into a before and an after, but you won't see it coming until the very end. If you've ever believed that small mistakes can change everything, stay with me till the last second, and when it hits you, don't forget to like this video and subscribe, because stories like this only get more powerful when shared. The airport was loud in the way only airports are, a restless orchestra of rolling wheels, overhead announcements, and hurried goodbyes. Amina stood near Carousel 7 with dark circles under her eyes and a phone clutched tightly in her hand. She had flown all night for a job interview she wasn't sure she even deserved, wearing borrowed confidence over a heart full of doubt. When the suitcase slid toward her, black, scuffed at the corner, familiar enough, she grabbed it without thinking. She didn't look at the tag. She didn't look back. She just walked, because sometimes life teaches you to keep moving even when you're not sure where you're going. Across the terminal, Daniel Cross stood frozen, watching his suitcase disappear into the crowd. For the first time in decades, the CEO of one of the world's most powerful logistics companies felt helpless. That suitcase wasn't just clothes and documents. Inside was the last letter his wife had written before she died, a letter he had never opened. He'd been carrying it for 3 years, waiting for the courage to finally read it on this trip, on the anniversary of her passing. He called out, but his voice drowned in the noise. The woman was gone. Amina didn't discover the mistake until she reached the bus terminal. The zipper jammed, and when it finally opened, her breath caught. Inside were men's suits, neatly folded, a leather-bound notebook, and a framed photo of a smiling couple by the sea. Her hands trembled. She checked the tag. Daniel Cross. Her heart sank. Panic rushed in, followed by something heavier, fear. Missing her interview now meant missing rent next month. She sat down on a bench, staring at a life that wasn't hers, wondering why everything always felt just one step out of reach. Daniel, meanwhile, canceled meetings he'd waited months to schedule. He paced the terminal like a man half his age, refusing help, refusing calm. The suitcase felt like the last place his wife still existed, and now it was gone. When airport security suggested filing a report, his knees weakened. He remembered her voice telling him not to control everything, not to wait forever. And yet here he was, waiting again. Amina tried to do the right thing. She returned to the airport information desk, only to be told the owner had already left. She called the number listed, but it went straight to voicemail. Time slipped through her fingers. Finally, she did something bold. She went to the address printed on a document inside the case, an address that led to a quiet hotel near the river. Daniel opened the door himself. When he saw the suitcase behind her, his shoulders dropped, not in relief, but in exhaustion. She apologized again and again, words tumbling over each other, explaining her interview, her panic, her mistake. He listened, really listened, something he hadn't done in a long time. And then he did something unexpected. He invited her in. They talked over coffee that grew cold. Amina spoke about her mother, about growing up learning to survive instead of dream. Daniel spoke about success that felt empty, about love lost because he was always, almost done, with work. When she finally left, he pressed a card into her hand and told her to call him after her interview, no matter how it went. The interview went badly. Or so she thought. She called anyway, voice shaking. Daniel listened and then simply said, "Come see me. Tomorrow." The next day, Amina walked into a building she'd only seen on TV screens. The job she'd interviewed for wasn't available, but another was. One created just for her. Not as charity, but because Daniel saw something in her he'd lost in himself. Weeks later, on a quiet evening, Daniel finally opened the letter from his wife. It spoke of forgiveness, of timing, of how love often arrives disguised as inconvenience. He smiled through tears, realizing that the wrong luggage had arrived at exactly the right moment. And here's where I ask you, if this story moved you even a little, if it reminded you that one small mistake can become a miracle, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. It helps stories like this reach hearts that need them. Amina grew into her role, confident, capable, and finally seen. Daniel learned to stop waiting for the perfect moment. And somewhere between a carousel and a closed suitcase, two strangers found the courage to change. Because sometimes, the life meant for you doesn't come labeled with your name. Sometimes, you have to pick it up by accident, open it with shaking hands, and choose to keep going anyway.